The reason why you are struggling with relationships is because you keep trying to date your parents, and I really need you to stop that. Hi, welcome to Christianish. This is the podcast for women who have Bibles but don't necessarily have boundaries. My name is Keshia Rice. I am a dating coach. I am also a hypnotherapist. I help women learn how to recognize their unhealthy relationship patterns and attract new, healthy, loving relationships. Now, to this whole idea of dating your parents, I was actually talking with my business coach about this the other day because we were talking about how I work with women and how I focus a lot on first identifying the unhealthy patterns that have led them to have not so great results in their love lives. And in talking about that, I was thinking about another podcast that I listened to. Shout out to the guys over if books could kill. It is a podcast that takes a lot of airport books and self-help books and discusses all the things that are wrong with them. And one of the hosts of the show talks about the one book theory. And the one book theory is this idea that all of these books are essentially one book because they have the same patterns, the same themes over and over again, and they all just kind of lead into each other. And I'm bringing this up because for me, I have the one relationship theory, right? I am always saying that all relationships are related. You show me a woman who has issues with her romantic relationships, I will show you a woman who also has issues with family or friends or at work with coworkers, or she has a business with her clients, even her relationship with God. Because at the end of the day, if you are dealing with self-worth issues in your romantic relationships, you're dealing with those in your other relationships as well. If you're dealing with communication issues in your romantic relationships, you're dealing with those in your other relationships as well. Boundaries are boundaries no matter who the person is that you're attached to, right? And to that end, the reason why so many women struggle with attracting a healthy, loving, romantic partner is because they are using romantic relationships as a way of rewriting the past. What I mean by that is early in your life, you had some relationship that was unhealthy that didn't go the way that you want. Maybe it is with one of your parents. And note that I'm saying one of your parents because we talk so often about men who have mommy issues or women who have daddy issues. But this could be the same sex parent that you're dealing with. This is not a gendered thing at all. Um, if it was not your parents, it was with whoever the guardian was that raised you. If it wasn't with the guardians that raised you, maybe it was you were bullied as a kid a lot by classmates and you felt helpless in that situation. Maybe it was with siblings or it was with teachers or someone at your church. But regardless, there is an early relationship that had a profound impact on you. Maybe more than one, because again, relationships are related. We tend to see a lot of the same patterns. And at any rate, you are trying to heal that relationship by using your present and future relationships. You're trying to heal the past through, again, your present and your future. So, what this looks like is, let's just say, to make it simple for people who are familiar with the idea of daddy issues, let's say that you are a woman and growing up your father didn't pay a lot of attention to you, and you were constantly striving for his love and his affection and his attention. So you didn't get that as a child, and now that you are an adult, you constantly attract men or date men who you are constantly doing the most to get their attention. You are often the one who is the pursuer in the relationship. You are the one who goes overboard with gifts, with doing things for that man, with trying to be the type of woman that he can show off, because there's a part of you that feels like if you were able to get this man's attention and his love and affection, you would finally be validated. You would finally prove that you are worthy of this love that you have been trying to get since childhood. So you end up constantly dating the same man with a different face. And in this case, the man that you keep dating is your father, right? And it's the same thing with, it doesn't necessarily have to be, again, the opposite sex parent. It could be maybe your mother. Maybe she was very manipulative and played games all the time, and now that you're an adult, you find yourself in a lot of relationships where you try to engage in this game playing because you want to be the one who finally wins the game, right? So you constantly put yourself in situations where you try to show that you are the one who is the most powerful. You're the one who knows all the rules. You're the one who knows the plays, and no one can get by you. Which, that can be fun for a while, but eventually you're going to, one, find yourself in a situation where someone is better at the game than you, and it is going to hurt even more when you end up being manipulated and hurt. And two, it doesn't give you a chance at authentic, genuine love, because real love, real healthy relationships are about two people showing up as their best selves and joining together to make each other's lives better. As long as you are constantly playing games and putting on a front, you're never going to have authentic love. So, what do we do about this? A couple of things. One, you need to recognize where and how this is happening. So, that starts with just going through your past significant relationships. Now, again, this is not just romantic relationships. You need to look at your relationships with your parents, with other close family members, your relationships with early childhood friends. What was school like for you, right? Um, what were the relationships, even in your religious community, church, synagogue, mosque, insert however you grew up, right? Um, what were your early dating experiences like? The men that you dated, why did those relationships end? And you need to go through these relationships and you need to figure out what were the patterns. Now, after you do that, I want you to think about these significant relationships and ask yourself, if X would have happened, I believe I would have been happier. If this person had done X, I would have felt validated and loved in the relationship. And identify what those things are. Then ask yourself, what are you doing in your current relationships to try to get that? Because again, back to the idea of you feel like your father didn't give you enough attention growing up. How are you acting out and trying to get attention now? And is that working for you? Has it gotten you the results that you want? Because I'm willing to bet no. I mean, just honestly, if you're listening to a podcast on dating and relationships, I'm willing to bet no. And now ask yourself, what could you do differently? What would you do if that wasn't a concern of yours? Again, back to this example of not feeling like you got enough attention. If you truly knew and believed that you were fearfully and wonderfully made, if you truly knew and believed that you were loved, that you were worthy, and that no matter what you did, you would continue to be loved, how would you show up in the world? How would you act? How would you speak? How would you walk? How would you talk? And I want you to imagine what it would be like to embody that. To embody that feeling, to embody that walk and talk and that belief. Because if you could allow yourself, even for just a little while, to show up in front of other people in a more authentic way, focused on what you want and your desires, and knowing that you are worthy of those desires, regardless of whether or not someone in the past had the capacity to give those to you, then I guarantee you that relationships would change for you. And I also want you to hone in on what I just said about regardless of whether or not people in the past had the capacity to have those relationships with you. Because one of the things that I talk to my clients a lot about is that I never want our calls, our work together to be a parent bashing session, right? Oftentimes people love us to the best of their abilities. Like, yes, I know that there are narcissistic people around. I know that there are bad people around, manipulative people around. At the same time, I do believe that the majority of people in this world are good people, right? And some of them have terrible relationships with us, not because they want to have terrible relationships, but because they just don't know how to behave in a relationship. They don't know how to love. Now, that doesn't mean we let them completely off the hook, right? We can acknowledge that someone doesn't know how to have a happy and healthy relationship, and we can even forgive that person. But in our forgiveness, we can also choose not to deal with them. We can also choose to revoke our access to that person. We can choose to limit that access to us. Even if we allow them to stay in our lives as a family member or as a friend, we can start becoming much more selective about the things that we talk to them about, the things that we share with them, the amount of time that we spend with them. So acknowledging that they don't have the capacity is not about letting them off the hook. And it is not about giving someone permission to run all over you. It is about acknowledging that their behavior has nothing to do with how amazing and wonderful you are, right? You are still amazing and wonderful regardless. And instead of spending all of your time trying to fix things with people who will never see your worth because they just simply can't, it means that you have to put your focus in finding the people who can. And that means changing your type. That means changing the people that you've been attracted to in the past. Because oftentimes that is how our brains work. We are attracted to what is familiar, not necessarily what is healthy. And once you recognize that this chemistry, quote unquote chemistry, that you feel is oftentimes just the familiarity rising inside of you, your traumas, recognize their traumas, and then you end up trauma bonded. It is understanding that real love feels peaceful and calm. My grandmother used to always say to me that God is not the author of confusion. Or sometimes she would say God is not the author of chaos. But either way, I always took that to heart. It was one of the reasons why I knew I wanted to marry my husband, was because being with him gave me a feeling of safety. Again, I tell my clients all the time that sometimes the butterflies in your stomach when you're around certain people, those aren't butterflies, they're roaches. And it is not until you learn that real, true, healthy love regulates your nervous system, until you learn that, you're going to find yourself constantly in a cycle of unhealthy situations. You also need to realize that no matter how good life becomes for you going forward, it will never erase the past or rewrite the past. Being in a healthy relationship now is not about proving to a ex-boyfriend or ex-husband or a parent or an old friend that you are finally truly worthy of a real relationship. Those people are going to believe what they want to believe about you, feel what they want to feel about you, regardless. And you can't control that. But what you can control, again, is what you do moving forward. So tell me, let me know, what are you going to do moving forward? You can let me know in the review section on the iTunes podcast, or in the comments if you're listening on YouTube. Or you can message me on social media. I'm on both. Actually, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Keshia Rice, KESHIARICE. Yeah, message me. What are you going to do to move forward from now on? Where are you going to put your focus? And what are you doing to write a beautiful future for yourself instead of trying to rewrite the past? And if you need help with writing that beautiful future, of course, I am here to help you. I would love to talk to you about what that future looks like and how we can build that together. If you want to work with me one-on-one, that starts with scheduling a call with me to make sure that we're the right fit. And I will have the link to that, again, if you're listening to the podcast, in the show notes. If you are listening on YouTube, it will be in the video description link. But until then, again, I want you to stop dwelling on what happened in the past when you could instead be focusing on the beautiful future that's ahead. One of my favorite verses is that verse in Jeremiah, "For I know the plans that I have for you." And it talks about plans for an expected end. And I think that when we put ourselves in the position of looking forward to that, and of trusting that nothing is wasted, that all the things that happened in the past didn't happen so that we could try to rewrite them or fix them or correct them, but so that they could help build a story that is more beautiful than we could have imagined or asked for. I think that's when we really start living. So I hope that you make that move to start living today. I love you so much. Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Contessa Digital.